Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
You were there at the White House for quite a while. You might get into that history, but it looks like following her for 20 years, being forced to. It's not like I want to watch her or read her or see what she does. It seems like her lies are getting wilder. She seems more unstable, looks even crazier than she did 20 years ago. She seems to be deteriorating is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so I've never seen anything that would lead me to believe that she's, I mean, other than like her policies seem to lean to some of these countries, but I've never seen anything that I would call, you know, out of the ordinary. But what along the lines you were talking about as she's getting older is, my take on it, Alex, is that she's getting more and more comfortable with it. That she's being more and more the real Hillary, which I in my opinion, she's more of a dictator than anything else. I think she's getting comfortable with it. I think she feels like it's been accepted by the people who are going to vote her in, and that's the way it's going to be.
Well, expanding on that, I don't normally go off a book by their cover, but clearly sometimes you're pumping gas and some thugs pull up. It doesn't matter whether black thugs, white thugs, whoever. You just pick up these guys are thugs, and sure enough, you see one of them, you know, shoot their mouth off at, you know, an old lady or something. And when you look at her, though, she just radiates like she could play a female Joker. I mean, if I was in casting in Hollywood, and I actually have worked in some films and consulting, I would cast her as a female supervillain. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. As a guy, you know, that has a gut instinct, criminology background, just her demeanor, the way she looks and acts sometimes, and the way her face has changed so suddenly, what's going on there? Because to me, she looks like she's mentally ill.
Well, I'll give you two examples of kind of the outburst that you're talking about. When I was still working at the White House, we had hired some new employees. And these two young officers, I was down in the break room, and a young officer came down, and he said, man, what a weird day. And we said, you know, what's going on? He said, well, he passed by the First Lady, and he said hello, and she told him to, you know, to go to hell. And, you know, we said, well, you know, that's the way it is around here. You know, she doesn't seem to like us much. And then another guy came in, he walked up, and he said, that's nothing. He said, last month I was walking past her down the West Colonnade, and he said good morning to her, and she told him to go F himself. And so that's two examples. And this happened, the way it happened, Alex, a sergeant overheard them telling the stories to myself and the other people down there, and they investigated it. And the senior agents of the agency took this so serious, they came down to talk to this guy, two inspectors, and they actually apologized and said, just understand this, that, you know, you're not going to get an apology from anyone else. And the bizarre thing about that, Alex, was the second guy who she told to go F himself, he had been in the Army a couple of years before, and he had been in Somalia on a mission basically that President Clinton had sent him on. And it wasn't, you know, today we know that Somalia, because of the movie Black Hawk Down.
They hung him out to dry.
Right. This was before that, like the first deployment to Somalia. And this guy was wounded and received the Purple Heart. Then a couple of years later, he comes to work for the Secret Service Uniform Division, and the First Lady tells him to go F himself. This is just so bizarre. I mean, this is one of the reasons I felt compelled. This is the person that people want to put in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
I think it's insane.
Well, bottom line, Gary, I've just noticed, you know, being around a few years, that criminal types don't like police officers, folks like that. And it's not that police are perfect or Secret Service are perfect. They just don't like the manliness. They don't like the straightforwardness. They don't like being looked in the eye. And I've confirmed with dozens of reporters over the 20 years and people that have worked around her, meetings she goes to, like Davos and others, that they tell people, and I've interviewed the people at the hotels after these events are over. I mean, I've made films on this, that they tell people in briefings, do not look Hillary in the eye. So as bad as you've been getting it, and other law enforcement officers, the word is when she is out around just general folks, no tips. And it's not just her, it's this whole group. You know, no tips, very rude, very hateful.
Like there are many examples I put in my book, you know, also details that, but yeah, I never thought that we'd be in the position where that she was getting ready to become president of the United States. Alex, years ago when they first started running from Arkansas, I ran into this deputy down there, and we were working together for about 4 hours outside this restaurant protecting President Clinton. And I'm sorry, not President Clinton, President Bush. Bill Clinton was just starting to run.
Sure.
First President Bush. And we were talking, and I said, what about this guy, this governor of yours that wants to run? And he goes, and I said, all these affairs and these rumors, he'll never get elected. And the guy looked at me, right through me, and he said, let me tell you something, Gary. These guys can spin manure in the gold. Then everything you hear about them is true. Believe it. And he will get elected, and he'll be there 8 years. And this guy was serious as a heart attack. And then he told me all these bizarre stories about all these rumors of people that, have had accidents and stuff that you were referring to before. So, I definitely think that if she gets elected, that we're going to see the crazy stuff we've seen for the last 8 years unfortunately, is going to look like a walk in the park.
Well, let me give you the intel directly from the Pentagon, you name it, across the board. And, of course, you were there when they were bringing the Chinese generals in and all that. She basically is a Chinese agent, a communist agent, but for money, and other elites are, so she's too big to fail. She's so corrupt and so bad and has done stuff so horrible, it'll bring down the whole government. So she thinks she's invincible.
Yeah. Well, my fear is, what if she is? That's my fear. I mean, what if she does get in?
We only got 30 seconds. I want to have you back. CrisisOfCharacterTheBook.com. But, sir, what do you think will happen if she gets in 30 seconds?
In 30 seconds, I think that after all the parties are over, I think the markets are going to swing. That's my fear. I also think that she's going to move towards more of a dictatorship, more socialism. We're going to see more of these.
Wow, so you think Hillary will move towards a dictatorship?
Yeah, I do. I think she'll move more towards socialism.
Incredible, sir. Thank you so much for your courage.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com with an extremely important message. You're probably asking yourself right now, what's the most important phrase in America right now? Well, it happens to be Hillary for prison. Get your Hillary for Prison t-shirt today at the Infowars store for $9.95. That's half of what it used to be at $19.95. Why do you want to get this? Why should you buy this for you and your friends and family? Because number one, it's a great conversation starter. And number two, hell, you get to trigger a whole lot of crazy liberal commie bastards. And that's what I like to do. And maybe you're just at work right now and it's Casual Shirt Friday and one of your hipster buddies walks in with a Hillary Clinton shirt saying I'm with her. Negative. This is what you're going to do. You're going to stand up and go, Hillary for prison! Benghazi!
What difference at this point does it make?
Go to InfoWarsStore.com and get your Hillary for Prison shirt today for $9.95 and trigger more assholes like him.